Hi, I'm Blake Lively, and I'm going to be taking the BuzzFeed quiz, which iconic Blake Lively character?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. It's Friday, March 6th, 2026, and if you're starting your day, getting ready for work, or already on the road, this is your Coravanta update, a rundown of the biggest stories making waves right now. Today's discussion is packed because there are several topics unfolding at the same time. Two separate developments connected to Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively are gaining attention, and they raise serious questions about how Hollywood disputes spiral into public battles. We're also going to talk about a moment involving Colleen Hoover and her reaction to the film adaptation of It Ends With Us, which continues to generate conversation months after its release. And then there is another layer to the Baldoni versus Lively situation that's raising eyebrows across the internet, particularly involving Jennifer Abel and what she says happened with her phone number and private information. According to her, this situation has been ongoing for years and has caused enormous personal and professional damage. We'll get into that in detail shortly. But before diving into the legal drama and the Hollywood headlines, there is another story circulating that has left many people concerned. Britney Spears has reportedly been arrested for a DUI, and the news has sparked a wave of discussion online about her personal struggles and the complicated legacy of the conservatorship that once controlled her life. For many people, Britney Spears represents more than just a pop star. She's become a symbol of how fame can both elevate and destroy someone. When news of the DUI surfaced, the first reaction across social media wasn't anger, it was sadness. Many people looked at the story and felt like it was another chapter in a long saga where a young woman who once dominated the global music industry continues to fight for stability and peace in her personal life. The reports say she's embarrassed by the arrest, especially because of how it could affect her relationship with her sons. And when you think about that, you realize how heavy that must feel. Anyone can make mistakes, but when your mistakes are broadcast to the entire world, the pressure becomes almost unbearable. The truth is, Britney's story has always been complicated. The conservatorship that controlled her life for more than a decade was supposed to protect her, but many people now believe it may have done more harm than good. At the same time, it's also clear that she still needs support and stability around her. Fame has a way of turning people into products, and that's exactly what happened to Britney Spears. She was pushed to perform non-stop, pushed to keep producing music and appearances, pushed to maintain an image that satisfied millions of fans and an entire industry built on profit. When people talk about the giving tree metaphor, it feels strangely accurate here. Over the years, it seemed like everyone around her took something: time, energy, money, control, until there was almost nothing left, and that's why this latest incident feels so tragic. Not because it's shocking, but because it feels like the continuation of a cycle that never fully ended. Many observers say they just hope there's a path forward for Britney where she finds peace, stability, and the support she needs to rebuild her life away from the constant spotlight. But the world of celebrity doesn't pause for reflection very long, and as soon as one story fades, another one begins. That brings us directly into the next headline: the ongoing discussion around It Ends With Us and the people behind it. Author Colleen Hoover recently appeared on the Today Show's book club segment, and the conversation naturally turned toward the film adaptation of her novel. For anyone unfamiliar with the story, It Ends With Us was already one of the most popular romance novels of the past decade before Hollywood decided to bring it to the big screen. When the film was finally released, it became a commercial success, earning millions and attracting audiences around the world. But along with the financial success came controversy, speculation, and a swirl of rumors about what may have happened behind the scenes during production. During her appearance on television, Hoover was asked about how it feels to see something so personal, a story inspired by painful experiences, turned into a major Hollywood project that is now surrounded by public drama and legal battles. Her answer was careful and measured. She acknowledged that the situation is complicated, but she also emphasized how proud she is of the movie itself. According to her, the opening weekend exceeded expectations, and the reaction from readers and fans who showed up to support the story meant a great deal. She said that even though there's been a lot of speculation and tabloid coverage surrounding the project, she tries to separate the success of the film from everything else happening around it. At one point she praised the cast and the director for bringing the story to life, and observers immediately noticed something interesting. While she didn't explicitly name Justin Baldoni in that moment, she did acknowledge the director's work, something that caught the attention of people who have been following the tension between Baldoni and Blake Lively. For months, fans have been trying to piece together what actually happened during the production and what eventually led to legal action. Hoover's comments didn't reveal any new details, but the fact that she acknowledged the director's role at all sparked discussion. Some critics say Hoover has tried to stay neutral publicly while privately supporting one side of the dispute. Others argue that she simply wants to focus on the film and avoid becoming another voice fueling the controversy. Either way, her appearance didn't reveal much new information. But that doesn't mean the situation itself has calmed down, in fact, quite the opposite. Because while the film continues to perform well and audiences continue discovering the story, the legal drama surrounding the people involved has only intensified, and that leads us to one of the most bizarre developments in the entire Baldoni versus Lively saga, the story involving Jennifer Abel and her phone. According to Abel, what happened to her is something that still feels almost impossible to believe. She claims that her personal phone number and data were effectively taken from her after she left her job working under Stephanie Jones. The situation began when she was dismissed from her position. The phone itself may have technically belonged to the company, but the number attached to it had been hers for years, decades, according to her own account. When she tried to retrieve or transfer the number, she says the situation quickly spiraled into something much more complicated. At first, she believed it would be a simple process. She went to a Verizon store and attempted to resolve the issue like anyone else would. The plan was straightforward: meet with the necessary representatives, verify her identity, and transfer the number back into her control. But according to Abel, the process stalled almost immediately. She says she was told to wait while technical teams sorted things out. Then communication stopped. Calls weren't returned. Messages went unanswered. Eventually she realized that something much bigger was happening behind the scenes. What she later discovered shocked her. According to Abel, the data from her phone had been extracted and examined. But because there were legal restrictions about sharing that information directly, she claims that a questionable workaround was created. A subpoena was reportedly issued under a legal filing that she says had little substance behind it, a temporary case that allowed access to the data before quietly disappearing. Once the information was obtained, the case was dropped. Whether that process was legitimate or not is now part of a larger legal and ethical debate, but from Abel's perspective, the damage had already been done. The consequences were devastating. Private messages that were never meant to leave personal conversations suddenly became public. Texts exchanged with friends, colleagues, and family members were exposed and interpreted in the harshest possible light. Anyone who has ever sent a sarcastic message or vented about work can imagine how embarrassing that would be if taken out of context and displayed for the world to judge. Abel says the exposure destroyed professional relationships and friendships. People who once trusted her suddenly viewed her differently. Business opportunities disappeared. Partnerships collapsed. And on top of everything else, she says she began receiving threats. The most frightening part, according to her, is that the problem didn't stop when she lost access to the phone. She claims that even years later, the number remains active somewhere in the background. Messages from friends still appear to deliver to the old number, meaning people assume she's ignoring them when in reality she never received the message at all. Social media alerts continue appearing, suggesting someone attempted to access accounts linked to the number. Every notification becomes another reminder that something deeply personal was taken away and never fully returned. For Abel, the emotional toll has been enormous. She says she's had to rebuild her life almost from scratch at nearly 40 years old. Starting over professionally is hard enough, but doing so while dealing with constant suspicion and online harassment makes the process even more painful. Yet despite everything, she insists she's not asking for sympathy. Instead, she says she wants others to learn from her experience. Growing up as the daughter of a decorated Navy fighter pilot, she was raised to respect authority and trust people in positions of power. That instinct, she now believes, may have made her vulnerable. If she could go back, she says she would question more, verify more, and protect her personal information far more carefully. The situation raises an obvious question: could she sue? Many observers believe she may have one of the strongest cases in the entire dispute if her claims are proven accurate. The idea that someone could hold onto another person's phone number and potentially access their accounts for years sounds almost unbelievable, yet according to her, that's exactly what happened. Critics of Stephanie Jones argue that even if the physical device belonged to the company, the ethical responsibility to release the number back to Abel should have been obvious. After all, a phone number is more than just a technical detail, it's a gateway to someone's digital identity, their contacts, their professional network, and their personal life, and that's where the story becomes even more surreal. Because in a world where most people rely on their phones for everything from banking to communication, losing control of that number can feel like losing part of your identity. Imagine waking up every day knowing that messages meant for you might be going somewhere else. Imagine not knowing whether someone is trying to access your accounts or impersonate you online. For Abel, that uncertainty has become part of daily life. While the legal drama surrounding Jennifer Abel continues to unfold, the story also reveals something larger about how modern conflicts play out in the digital age. In the past, workplace disputes or professional disagreements might stay behind closed doors, but now everything is connected to devices, accounts, social media, and digital trails. When control of those tools is taken away, the consequences ripple through every part of a person's life. For Abel, the emotional impact appears to be just as significant as the professional damage. She described how humiliating it felt to watch private moments, jokes, frustrations, small bits of gossip shared among friends suddenly become material for strangers to analyze and criticize online. Everyone has conversations they assume will stay private, but when those conversations are exposed without context, they can make anyone look terrible. That, she says, is exactly what happened to her. As the controversy grew, public opinion became divided. Some people argued that Abel had been careless and should have protected her information more carefully. Others insisted that regardless of the circumstances, taking someone's digital identity or preventing them from reclaiming their phone number crosses a line that should never be acceptable. The debate quickly turned into a larger conversation about privacy and trust in professional relationships. Many people who followed the case began asking themselves a simple question: if something like this could happen to someone working inside a major entertainment network, could it happen to anyone? Abel herself eventually addressed that idea in a series of messages online. She explained that she wasn't sharing her story to gain sympathy but to warn younger professionals entering the industry. When you begin a career, especially in a high-pressure environment like media or entertainment, you often assume that the people mentoring you have your best interests at heart. But in competitive industries, loyalty can change quickly. She admitted that trusting authority figures had always been part of how she approached life. That trust, she now believes, made it easier for others to take advantage of the situation. Despite everything, Abel says the experience has also made her stronger. It forced her to develop a level of caution she never previously felt was necessary. She now tells young professionals to document everything, protect personal accounts carefully, and remember that business relationships can shift overnight. Those lessons, she says, came at a painful cost, but they may prevent someone else from experiencing the same situation in the future. Meanwhile, people following the Baldoni versus Lively dispute have started wondering how Abel's story fits into the broader legal picture. Some observers believe her testimony could become an important piece of the puzzle if the court examines how information was obtained and shared during the conflict. Others think the situation might eventually lead to a separate lawsuit entirely. For now, the questions remain unanswered, but the discussion surrounding the issue continues to grow across social media and entertainment news outlets. What makes the story even more fascinating is how quickly public perception can shift. When Abel first spoke out, many people dismissed her claims and assumed she was simply reacting emotionally to losing her job. But as more details surfaced, the narrative began to change. Suddenly people started looking more closely at the events surrounding the phone, the subpoena, and the information that was allegedly extracted from it. In cases like this, the truth often takes time to emerge, and by the time it does, the damage to reputations and relationships may already be permanent. For Lars Harry, who has been covering the story on Coravanta, the situation highlights just how chaotic modern celebrity disputes can become. What begins as a disagreement between public figures often spreads outward, affecting employees, assistants, publicists, and even unrelated professionals who happen to be caught in the middle. In that sense, the Baldoni Lively case is no longer just a Hollywood disagreement. It has become a complicated network of legal claims, personal grievances, and digital controversies. As the conversation shifted away from the entertainment industry, Lars Harry turned his attention to a completely different topic: the growing political tension surrounding international conflicts. In a recent segment, he spoke with Lieutenant Lee Larson, a former chaplain in the United States Air Force Reserve. Larson has spent years studying the intersection of religion, politics, and military culture, and her perspective on the current geopolitical climate offered a stark contrast to the earlier discussion about Hollywood. Their conversation began with a question that many people have been asking: why does it seem like global tensions are escalating so rapidly? Larson explained that while it may appear sudden, the roots of many current conflicts stretch back decades. Ideologies, political alliances, and religious interpretations often combine in ways that influence decisions made by governments and military leaders. In some cases, she argued, certain theological beliefs have been used to justify political agendas or military actions. According to Larson, a particular strain of religious nationalism has been gaining influence in parts of American politics for years. This ideology suggests that the United States has a special role in global events and that certain actions are necessary to fulfill what believers see as a divine purpose. Critics of this viewpoint argue that mixing religious doctrine with government policy can lead to dangerous outcomes, especially when it comes to decisions about war and peace. Lars Harry responded by pointing out how difficult it can be to separate genuine belief from political strategy. Some leaders may truly believe the religious narratives they reference, while others may use those narratives simply because they resonate with a portion of the population. Either way, the result can be the same: policies shaped by ideas that many citizens do not share. Larson agreed that the distinction is often impossible to measure. Polling data suggests that a significant minority of voters support versions of Christian nationalism, but that doesn't mean everyone within that group interprets the ideology in the same way. Some people embrace it fully, believing the country should explicitly identify as a Christian nation. Others simply feel that traditional religious values should have a stronger influence on public life. The conversation then turned toward how these beliefs affect the military. Larson explained that historically, military chaplain programs included representatives from many different religious traditions. However, she believes the balance has shifted in recent decades, with certain evangelical interpretations becoming more prominent in military culture. That shift, she argues, can influence how soldiers and leaders interpret global events, especially conflicts involving countries in the Middle East. Lars Harry noted that discussions like this often make people uncomfortable because they challenge assumptions about patriotism and faith. For many Americans, religion and national identity are closely connected, and questioning that relationship can feel like questioning the country itself. But Larson insisted that examining these ideas openly is necessary if people want to understand the forces shaping political decisions. Their conversation also touched on misinformation and the difficulty of navigating modern media. With information spreading instantly across social platforms, it becomes harder for individuals to determine which sources are reliable. Larson pointed out that even influential commentators sometimes have political or financial connections that complicate their claims of independence. That doesn't automatically make their reporting inaccurate, but it does mean audiences should approach every source with a critical mindset. As the discussion continued, Lars Harry shared an example from his own life: a disagreement with a family member about a recent military incident overseas. The conversation illustrated how easily people can interpret the same event in completely different ways depending on the information they trust. One side might see a tragic mistake or unnecessary escalation, while the other side believes the same event was justified or even fabricated by opposing governments. Larson said these disagreements are becoming more common because modern politics encourages people to interpret facts through ideological filters. When someone is deeply invested in a particular worldview, new information is often evaluated based on whether it confirms or contradicts that worldview. Breaking out of that pattern requires humility and a willingness to reconsider beliefs, which is not always easy. Interestingly, the conversation eventually turned toward hope. Despite the deep divisions in modern politics, both Larson and Lars Harry agreed that there are signs people are beginning to question the narratives they once accepted without hesitation. Some former supporters of political movements have started re-evaluating their positions after events didn't unfold the way they expected. Those moments of realization can be powerful turning points. Larson emphasized that people who change their minds should not automatically be rejected or mocked. If someone genuinely reevaluates their beliefs and chooses a different path, welcoming them into broader conversations can strengthen democratic dialogue. Lars Harry agreed, adding that societies grow stronger when individuals are willing to admit mistakes and learn from them rather than doubling down out of pride. As their discussion wrapped up, Larson recommended several books for viewers who want to understand the psychological and historical forces behind religious nationalism in the United States. She explained that learning how these movements developed can help people recognize the patterns influencing current political debates. Knowledge, she said, is one of the most effective tools for resisting manipulation and propaganda. For Lars Harry, the conversation served as a reminder that the issues dominating headlines, whether they involve Hollywood lawsuits, digital privacy battles, or international conflicts, are all connected by a deeper theme: the struggle for truth and accountability in an increasingly complex world. Information travels faster than ever before, but clarity often arrives much more slowly. As the segment concluded, Lars Harry thanked viewers for joining him on Coravanta and reminded them that these conversations matter precisely because they encourage people to think critically about the world around them. Whether the topic is entertainment, gossip, or geopolitical strategy, the goal is always the same: to ask questions, explore multiple perspectives, and search for the truth beneath the noise. And with that, he signed off, promising more discussions and interviews in the coming days, because in a time when stories evolve by the hour, staying informed has never been more important.